Happy New Year! Long time no see. I'm really bad at doing wrap-ups and keeping track of like my reading statistics. I think after a certain number, like past the 100 mark, it becomes a bit of a drag to take note or create lists. Even though I didn't really keep track of what genres or categories I was reading, I did log the books that I read inside a tracker, several trackers actually. I use Goodreads, Fable, Storygraph, Bookmori, Pagebound. Yeah, that's the last one. And this year, in 2026, I downloaded another tracker called Margins. It's really laggy. I don't know whether it's laggy for you, whether it's because my phone is so old, but I find it really laggy. But I do like the monthly view. That's the only reason why I downloaded it actually. I liked how it looked like compared to Bookmori. However, Bookmori is definitely less laggy. However, Bookmori has advertisements, so I always just turn off my internet when I use that app. In 2025, I read 283 books. In my head, I was thinking that I wanted to try reading one book a day for a year, but that's not realistic because I have a job and I have a toddler and I also have a social life, or at least I tried my best to have a social life. I really tried to read like one book every other day. Once I hit like the 200 mark, I was like, I'm gonna slow down, so I slowed down. This video is going to talk about one particular category from the books that I read in 2025. I remember every book that I read. I was reading them seriously, properly. I'm not even sure why I feel the need to defend or explain how deeply or how properly I was reading, because the funny thing about something becoming popular is that there will always be people who pop out of the bushes and try to police, you know, or gatekeep a particular activity that generally a lot of women are having fun with. Definitely there is a part of me resulting from my training that does believe in reading properly, whatever that means, right? And I think that it's very difficult to unlearn that, but I'm trying. Also, I keep telling myself that it's literally none of my business what people are doing with their books. If they are drawing on their books, fine. If they are skimming through it and not remembering anything after that, who cares, right? Memory is not the only valid measure of a life lived or of time passed. If you had a good time reading it, okay, oh, that's good enough, right? Everybody starts somewhere. And also, not everything needs to be homework. It's okay to read something shallowly, for fun, just for the plot, for the vibes, from time to time. So I think for me, the main idea is like moderation. If you approach your reading saying like, oh, I need to become an intellectual, I need to be on par with all those people who write very lyrical and complex essays on Substack, okay, if that's your goal, fine. But to say that other people, or to look down on other people for not aspiring for that level of engagement with a book, I'm not very comfortable with that. However, I also think that if you treat books, you know, like fast food, if you read solely for pleasure, 100% of the books, none of it is about learning about the world around you. None of it is about introducing a new perspective, getting to know a different culture. None of it stretches you in any way. None of it pushes you out of your comfort zone in any way. I'm not talking about any particular genre, but you are free to jump to your own conclusions. I just think that if you are doing only that, is this an Asian saying? You kind of don't have a leg to stand on when people say that you are reading shallowly. Perhaps they shouldn't be judging you so openly about it, but it's a bit incongruous if you get angry that people say that you're reading shallowly or that you're not reading real literature. Like, own it. If that's really what you want to read, only own it. Another thing I wanted to say is that this is probably the last time you will see my glasses because I'm gonna change them. I'm just waiting for them to be ready because my degree is really high. You know, it's really high because my degree is really high and my astigmatism went up again thanks to my screen time at work. I am sure I have to wait like weeks for my glasses to be ready. Goodbye, glasses. I think I will miss them a little bit. They're actually kind of heavy, so my next pair will hopefully be lighter and not like, you know, constantly pressing down on my nose bridge. This is the last time you will see my glasses in my book videos. I do plan to do like another 3 book videos at the very least for the books that I read in 2025. Let's start. This year, I read many books that are considered fucked up. When I describe them to my partner, he'll ask me, why do you always read this kind of weird books? And then when he asks me about the latest book that I'm reading, I'll be like, oh, it's about this person who is really fucked up. And he'll be like, as usual, when are you not reading about fucked up people? I am always reading about fucked up people. I don't do it to feel better about myself. I think everybody has a certain degree of fucked upness in them, so I don't do it to feel superior. I just find them very interesting. I like to see how other people imagine like the limits of human weirdness and perversity. So when I can find a book that stretches my existing definition, I treat it as like an educational exercise. Okay, book 1, Shy Girl by Mia Ballard. It was not available in my library when I wanted to read it, and I didn't understand why until I read it, and I was like, yeah, I get it. I get why they didn't want to bring it in, because it's yeah. I realized that all these like fucked up books that I read these days, they always feature like women who are 30 and above, which I feel is more realistic, because how fucked up can a 22-year-old be? You know what I mean? They still have so much of their life to live, but like a woman in her 30s has seen some shit. A woman in her 30s has gone through some shit. I can believe it. A woman in her 30s is facing pressure from society, from her parents, to settle down, to get married, to find somebody and quickly reproduce before your eggs dry out or something like that. This book is about a woman called Gia. She's actually neurodivergent. She lost her job. She can't pay her rent. And she's actually like really harmless. She's really nice. She wouldn't do anything to hurt anyone. When there is a homeless guy, she will knit him a sweater, she will give him food. She has exactly one friend. Just one friend who cares about her and who worries about her. And the one thing that helps her cope or like, you know, become functional. I hate this word, but you know what I mean. What makes her functional is like medication. She's not able to afford medication anymore. And then she gets on a dating app to look for a sugar daddy. This is like that meme, right? Looking for a man in finance, 6'5", blue eyes. She manages to match with one guy, which is the first guy that she matches with, and he is working in finance. At this point, woman meets a man. Both of them are fucked up. There is only one way it can go. She kills him or he kills her. So I was looking forward to her killing him. I just didn't know how we were gonna get to that point. I think like this whole video is just gonna have spoilers, okay? It's impossible to talk about these books without giving spoilers. We need to talk about why these are fucked up. We need to talk about how these people are fucked up. She goes to this guy's house. She finds out that he has a fetish. I just want to say that I am not king shaming anybody. This is what other people like to do, okay? There are people who like to do this, but it's safe and it is consensual. In this situation, it is not safe and it's not consensual. His fetish is to have his women behave like dogs. So he will make them crawl on the floor, he will put them in a cage. They're not allowed to speak, they're only allowed to bark. And of course, like, he has sex with them. It's a given. So what he wants is like a girl pet that he can have sex with at any time. In order to get her to agree, he lies to her. He tells her that this is just a day job, you know, it's like 9 to 5, you clock in and then you clock out. But he ends up kidnapping her. He kidnaps her, he puts her in a frilly pink room. He reveals to her that he actually researched her before he chose her to be his next what do you call it, victim, I guess. So he purposely targeted her. He targeted her because she didn't have anyone who would miss her. He believes that her friend will give up on her and then he can do whatever he wants. She also finds out that before her, he actually had another woman that he kept imprisoned in his house as his dog for 10 years. The compensation is pretty high. So because he's really rich, after he lets these women go, he gives them money, a house, a car, whatever. They can live the good life, but they just need to be his doggy pet slave for maybe like 7 to 10 years. The living conditions are horrible. She's not allowed to see a doctor. So some of these injuries and illnesses that she gets do impact her permanently. She also finds out that the longer she stays in this place, she starts to change. Like, her body becomes more animalistic. She gets sharp teeth, she gets fur on her body. One thing that she finds out also is that this guy is actually live streaming her bedroom. He is making money off of her enslavement to a whole bunch of other sickos. She gets pregnant. She gives birth to something not 100% human, which I feel is a metaphor for how she has become not 100% human. You know what I mean? What came out of her womb is the product of her reduction into a mere beast. The human response, right? The human response is to take care of your baby no matter what. But because she has already become completely non-human, she eats the fetus. It's cannibalism, but you know, there are animals that do eat their young out of survival, or when they are certain that the conditions are not right to raise their offspring. This is what makes the man decide it has gone too far. He's no longer comfortable with having her in his house, and he tries to set her free. But by then, she doesn't want freedom anymore. She doesn't want a house or a car or a whole bunch of money. It's been 7 years. All she wants is revenge. So she kills him. Yes. What could this mean? There's so many ways to think about this book, right? That you can say that it's about relationships between men and women, and how what men want from women is always just obedience and subservience and sex. In a way, you could even say that their arrangement is possibly a metaphor for marriage. You marry this rich guy, he uses you for a bit, but afterwards you get out, right, with a lot of money, which I guess is the divorce settlement. And then you can continue to live your best life after having made like this sacrifice in your past. But is it worth it? There are some women who think that it's worth it. For example, this guy's ex, she actually comes back and she defends him, you know. She says that this man improved her life. It was actually this appearance of the side character that made me wonder if the author was trying to say something about modern marriages between men and women. How a lot of it is actually transactional and based on dependence. Possibly also how women who enter marriages with men don't do it because they have better options, but because they are in need. Gia, however, is not one of these women who is happy with such an arrangement. So she's somebody who was forced into it. And I think her turning into a real canine is not just a natural result of the dehumanizing treatment that she received at his hands, but also a warning. A warning to say that if you turn women into beasts, you should beware, because beasts have fangs and they have claws. They will not show mercy. The reviews aren't very positive, but for me, I felt it was a good book. There's a lot to think about. There are many ways to interpret it. It would actually make a really interesting book club discussion. Okay, next book. Hunger by Choi Jin-young. This book is kind of trending right now because it's a late release in 2025. So if you read it, I don't know what you think about the cover, but it's so deceptive. When I saw it, I was like, oh, cup noodles, so exciting. I love cup noodles. And then I started reading it and I'm like, wait a minute, this is not about cup noodles at all. Like, there is nothing about cup noodles in here. This book is very difficult to explain in a few sentences. I was thinking, like, can it be a dark romance? When you call something a dark romance, you are implying that there is some kind of escapism, right? Even if the relationship doesn't end up happily ever after, there is always some kind of fantastical element to it. It doesn't need to be magical, but it does need to feel magical to the characters. There's none of it here. It's actually really bleak, and I think it's meant to be realistic. It is definitely a love story, but it's one where there is no happy ending. And in fact, I wouldn't say there's a happy anything. There is this woman, she's called Dam, and she has this lover called Gu. The book opens with her holding his corpse. He's dead and she's holding him, and she is thinking about how she needs to eat every part of him so that the loan sharks can't have his body. She eats everything. Eating his body is her way of loving him. She doesn't want to relinquish his body to the world that has mistreated him, the world that took away his health and took away his life. This book would fall neatly under the category of cannibalism equals love, right? It's an extreme form of love, for sure. In a way, I would also say that her eating him is a form of resistance. In this society, the two of them were poor, low class, working class, struggling class. That's partly also why Gu ended up being killed by loan sharks. They are vulnerable. If we look at it as like a food chain, Dam and Gu are like here at the bottom, the very bottom of it. The world has already eaten them over and over and over again. Them eating him in a way allows Go to be eaten by somebody that he loves for once, instead of somebody that just wants to make use of him, or somebody that sees him as a piece of trash. The whole book is just about their childhood, how much suffering they went through, how they reached adulthood, how they reached this situation where he is dead and in her arms, and she's trying to save him one last time from getting eaten by the world. Next book, What Hunger by Catherine Dang. This is similar in the sense that there is cannibalism. I love cannibalism in books, not in person. I don't eat red meat. Cannibalism is so flexible as a metaphor. You can use it to talk about anger against the patriarchy. You can talk about it as anger against capitalism. But I think the bottom line is that cannibalism in fiction is always used to show like a breaking point, right? Somebody has gone through so much. To a certain point, they break, they go berserk, they go crazy, they become unhinged. In this book, there is a 14-year-old character. So the entire book is written from the POV of a 14-year-old girl. So it reads a little bit like YA, but it is not YA, okay? It's like fake YA. But I do think that the YA voice, the style, if you don't like to read books from teenagers' POVs, you won't like this book. I tend to not like teenager POV books, but I am able to put that aside to appreciate the plot. 14-year-old Veronica, nicknamed Ronnie, her brother Tommy has died. Their parents are from Vietnam. Their parents had to flee Vietnam because of the political unrest. All of that is hidden from Tommy and Ronnie. They are not allowed to know their family history. Their parents try very, very hard to help them assimilate diaspora feelings towards their so-called home country. It's complex, right? I don't think anybody ever feels 100% positive towards the country that they left. After her brother dies, she gets raped by a classmate at a party. She bit off a little bit of his earlobe, and everybody found out. As is typical in these situations, he didn't have any shame or repercussions, but she was treated differently, treated as if she was dirty in some way. All that is compounded by the fact that she is still grieving her dead brother. She also realized that her neighbors, like opposite their house, they are not very, very stable. She feels perhaps that the wife is in danger from the husband. Her neighbor is going to kill his wife at some point in time, hit her too hard. So there's three things going on. There's the situation with her classmate, there is the situation with her brother who died, and there's the situation with her neighbor. After she bit off the boy's earlobe, she started to develop a taste for raw meat. She does manage to get a little bit from the butcher, but it's not enough, and she started craving like more. Her then wanting to eat the raw meat of predatory men, it seems to be an intentional choice, because if she's really just angry at the men, or if she wants to punish them, right, for preying on little girls like her, she could just kill them but not eat them. Adding this additional layer of hunger in it turns it into not just vengeance or karma anymore, but also for survival, because the act of eating is for survival. The strong eats the weak. She doesn't just feel like eating a little bit, she becomes ravenous. Her hunger is insatiable. I saw it as like a reverse of what the men around her were doing. These men who just go around taking what they want, right? Consuming other people, treating other people as just meat to be eaten. She's doing that to them. So instead of being prey, she's now a predator. This then reverses the conventional dynamic between women and men. But of course it also helps that she's giving them a taste of their own medicine. Later on, when the situation with her neighbor escalates, she manages to find an ally in her mother, who she actually never knew was likely the cause of her own internal deviance. She thought that this was a her problem, but she finds out that actually when her mother herself was put in a situation where she was the only woman on a boat full of men, she had to do what she had to do to survive, which was to kill them and eat them and become the sole survivor on that boat, after which she met Ronnie's father. When I reached this part of the book, it then solidified this idea for me that hunger in this book is not just about vengeance, but about survival. It's not an option. You cannot just be like, I want to be the better person and I'm going to abstain from harming another living being. Even if they are shitty men, they are still alive, whatever. No, it is not an option. Because these men will not leave the women alone. If the men would leave the women alone, yeah, perhaps that is an option, right? But it is quite literally like a dog-eat-dog world that's portrayed in this book. If Veronica's mom didn't kill all the men on that boat and eat them, then she would have been raped and killed. So it is not an option. There is no moral high ground here. It is pure survival. It's quite a bleak worldview as well, but I think that it's relevant and I think it's necessary in this book. Next book, Eat the Ones You Love by Sarah Mariah Griffin. This is a weird book, but it's less depressing. It's a bit fun. So it's about this 32-year-old woman called Shell. She broke up with her fiance that she wasted her 20s on, and then she moves back home to live with her parents, but they don't really want her around, so she feels like a burden. She feels like her parents actually want her out of the house and to stop like leeching off of them, because she's also jobless. So she gets a job at the mall, which is like a dilapidated mall, a mall that's been around since she was a teenager, and she gets a job at the local florists. And the only reason why she does is because she has a crush on the owner. So the owner is this hot lesbian. So this woman has, you know, detonated her life. She lashed out at her friend group because she felt that all of them were being really unsupportive and judgmental and bitchy, which they kind of are, but she really just lost it at them. So she doesn't have anyone in her life, and then out pops this hot lesbian. Premise is very like Wattpad-y, I would say, so I was looking forward to it, and then it got a little bit strange and not very Wattpad-y anymore. It turns out that this hot lesbian florist has a codependent relationship with a evil sentient orchid in the greenhouse. Its vines, his vines, have spread all over the mall, like on the walls, in the corner, in the supply closet, all over the mall. The entire mall is this orchid's like turf. There is nothing that goes on in it that he doesn't know. So this orchid was actually the one that wanted Shell to get with his human being. The hot lesbian calls this orchid like baby. So it's very strange. It becomes really clear that baby has some kind of mental hold on her boss. The boss probably like absorbed his pollen over the course of like a decade or something. But Shell is thinking that she can, you know, be with her, and then they can leave the orchid behind, and they can leave the mall behind, and then can go somewhere else and start their lives anew. But obviously the orchid is not going to let this happen. And on top of that, the orchid also gets hungry and keeps harassing the lesbian to bring him a body to eat because he's hungry. He wants to eat something so that he can transform and get enough energy to, I guess, evolve, you know, like Pokemon, but like evil Pokemon, not like evil plant type Pokemon. Long story short, he then eats the boss, which is the hot lesbian, and finally they become one. And Shell was there, like looking at this happen. If you're wondering, there is a happy ending for Shell, and her life does improve. I think the only people that lost was like the hot lesbian. Next book, Creep by Emma Van Straaten. I love this book. I love this book so much because it's like 小杂包. Like seriously, she's a 小杂包. I know we shouldn't be saying that, but if you read this book, you would agree with me, I think. So it's about this woman. She's called Alice. She's not young, she's not hot, she's not pretty, she's not wealthy. She does have a job, but she's also doing like a side hustle where she cleans one guy's apartment once a week, and she insists on continuing this cleaning job because she's in love with him. And in her head, like, she has this elaborate fantasy that if she cleans his apartment well enough, he will fall in love with her. He will message her on the app and ask if they can go on a date. So in her head, right, she has this fantasy, and she turns into a bit of a stalker. One day she finds out that he is starting to date another person, this person is someone closer to his class. She's tall, she's thin, she's white, she's posh, she works as a gallery curator, which is kind of like the most rich white girl job a woman can get in books, right? In fiction. The man that she's obsessed with, his name is Tom, and Tom is also kind of like a standard rich white man. There's nothing really that sets him apart. But I think for Alice, one of the reasons why she fell in love with him and why she saw him as the epitome of, you know, a desirable man is because she herself is not fully white. I think she's brown, but she's a bit white passing. And she also has a lot of body image issues because she knows that she's not conventionally attractive, and she often refers to herself, you know, her body, her looks, as monstrous. She uses the word monstrous. The thing is, other people have indicated interest in her. She does go on dates with other people, especially other people of color, but she's just not interested in investing her emotions and her time in them. They have tried, they really tried, but for her, she's just unable to accept their love. She only wants the love and validation from Tom, which is a guy that she's never actually even spoken to, because their arrangement is through this like cleaning app. After she finds out that, you know, Tom is seeing this gallery curator seriously, she goes a little crazy. So she goes the extra mile into cleaning his apartment. She makes sure that everything is perfect. She does things that she even shouldn't do, like, you know, put tulips in a vase. However, she makes one fatal mistake, which is that she has her period, so she goes to the toilet and then the blood comes out, right? But she forgets to flush. So she's thinking like, I have done everything so perfectly already. He's going to fall in love with me for sure. However, he terminates their arrangement. And she's like, why would you do that? She confronts him in person. However, after she did that, he realizes that he's seen her before, and he realizes that she's stalking him. So she becomes like a proper stalker. And obviously stalking is wrong. You know, I'm not saying that stalking is right. I do think that this book is quite realistic in its depiction of what is possible in the realm of relationships. The fact is that somebody like Tom is not going to date somebody like her. Tom is going to date within his race, within his class, but Alice has some kind of like colonial hangover. And one of the reasons why Alice is like that is also because of how she was treated by her own mother growing up compared to her sister. And this kind of like mistreatment then became the basis of her personality, became the basis of who she desires and why she desires them, who she rejects and who she makes use of, who she views as, you know, I can understand that he's attractive, but he's not good enough for me. He'll never be good enough for me. All that comes back actually from how her mom treated her, which I know is a very like neat explanation, right? Like, oh, somebody is fucked up in their head. It must be because of childhood trauma. Many times it is. So it is a very convenient explanation. But at the same time, I also think like just because it's childhood trauma doesn't negate what this book is trying to say, right? About desirability. Next book. The Whole by Hye-young Pyun. This book reminded me of Misery by Stephen King. Have you read it? Or have you watched the movie? The movie is really good, isn't it? So it's about this guy, he's like in the university, he's a cartographer in the geography department, so he studies maps. He studies ancient maps to be exact. One of the maps that was talked about was like a map that had a little hole in the middle of it. And he was like talking about how this hole, this thing that we do not know in the map, this unknown, right, this lacuna, is actually more significant than what can be known, which is what is visible to us on the map itself. He was basically talking like, you know, the way that academics do about these kind of things. However, in spite of like, you know, having this kind of academic knowledge on cartography, he's unable to see the holes in his own marriage. So he's married to a woman who did not manage to fulfill her academic potential, I guess. And he doesn't stop to think why. He kind of looks down on her. He treats her quite derisively. They get in a car accident. The wife dies. He survives, but he becomes like paralyzed. His colleagues do come to see him, but it's very uncomfortable, right? Because what do you say to your colleague who has become paralyzed? Like, oh, sorry, you can't walk anymore. You can't say that. And he also can't speak, by the way. So one of the women that comes to visit him is actually like somebody that he's having an affair with from his university. After a stint in the hospital, there's nobody to take care of him anymore. other than his mother-in-law. And everybody is like, oh, this mother-in-law is so nice, you know, she doesn't need to take care of you, you're not her real son, and her daughter died, but here she is taking care of you. She brings him home, she puts him in the house, and then she starts to imprison him bit by bit. He is technically supposed to be recovering, just really slowly. She puts him in a room, she ignores his calls for diaper change, she lets him sit in his filth uncomfortably, feeds him occasionally. She plants a tree outside that blocks his view so that he can't even enjoy the view outside anymore. He's cognizant of the fact that she's digging a hole, she's digging something. What is she digging? It's obvious, she's digging his grave because she found out he was an asshole. So this is clearly like a revenge plot. I enjoy revenge plots. The punishment doesn't fit the crime, but we're talking about a woman who lost her one and only precious daughter, and then she ends up marrying this shitty guy, and then she loses her life because he was in the car driving her. Did he kill her? Maybe, right? I do think that the punishment does not fit the crime. It's a bit extreme, but I can also understand that she's operating on grief. His wife died, but he's not even sad about her. To him, it's like a casualty, but to him, right, he's like, my university position, oh, I just got tenure, will I ever go back to teach? I hope I can go back to teach. You know, that's like more important to him. He's thinking about his career. He doesn't give a shit about his wife. So okay, I'm not saying murder is okay, but I get it. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. It's kind of comic, right? He looked down on his wife for being like useless, as I guess he saw it, but at the end of the day, he's the one that became unable to do anything. Even though he became disabled, in his head, he's really ableist. I don't think this book is ableist, but it does portray ableist perspectives from the character's POV. So after the universe punished him, his mother-in-law decided to continue to punish him fully for her own satisfaction. He does manage to break out, and he ends up in the hole. Next book, Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. This is a very interesting book. To me, I need to clarify, and I get it because when I read the first few pages, I also was like, weird, so weird, but I can't put it down. This is about a woman who is sexually aroused only by planes. So you know, we have like the train otakus, and then we have the plane otakus. This woman takes it to the next level. And the thing is, like, that's fine. I mean, it's her life, it's her choice, it's her body. She's not hurting anybody. Like, who cares if she gets off the planes? So what she does is, like, she tries to save up money to go on flights because her dream is to marry a plane. And her idea of marrying a plane is to die in a plane accident. She also uses the opportunity to masturbate very covertly in her airplane seat, which I feel is not very hygienic, so don't let me find out. There is law provided for why she became like that. It's because when she was younger, she sat on a plane ride with her parents. She thought that the plane, you know, having turbulence meant that she was going to die, but in the end, I guess the adrenaline spike or something like that was then logged as like sexual excitement in her brain. She has a friend who has like ordinary desires. So there is this contrast, right, between this woman with deviant desires versus this woman with normal desires. She wants to get married to her fiancé, she wants to have children, etc, etc. These women, they both want something that not very attainable for either of them. Of everything that happened in this book, her relationship with her friend was the thing that I enjoyed the most from my reading experience. She does try to keep her secret from her friend when her friend tries to get her to make a mood board, and then she puts like all these planes on the mood board. She tells her friend that it's because she dreams of marrying a pilot, and later on her friend doesn't judge her, and in fact her friend takes a flight to look for her and make sure that she's not dying in a ditch somewhere. She manages to track her down, and they take the plane back home, the plane that is the one that she's destined to die on. I like that the book also left the ending as open-ended. You can imagine that this whole time she's not like delusional, and that she really is fated to die on this plane, and the plane really has been sending her subliminal messages. Or you can also believe that, you know, she doesn't die on this plane. She goes home with her friend, and she maybe tries to make sense of her life, or maybe it's the second chapter of her life. Next book, hard copy by Fien Veldman. I hope I said that right. Like the Sky Daddy, this book is about a woman who is in love with her office printer. I don't have any feelings towards my office printer. I just see it as like my co-worker. I can see the appeal of anthropomorphizing electronic devices because sometimes they do seem to have a mind of their own, right? Like when you're rushing, that's when the printer decides to jam. Or when you really need to complete something, then your computer decides to have an update. So I get it. Sometimes it feels like they have souls. The narrator is working in a company that she's overqualified for. So her job is literally to make copies of things. It's just to print things and make copies of things. That's all she does from day to night. She's also clearly neurodivergent in the sense that socializing or doing anything else is very difficult for her. She is overqualified, but she got her degree through like, you know, asynchronous means. It's not like a in-person lecture, in-person tutorial, and then she got her degree. No, like she did everything online as best as she can. She cannot with like social settings. It stresses her out. It gives her a lot of anxiety. And in fact, when there's like people around her, she will start to have symptoms. She'll get like stomach aches, that kind of thing. She talks to her printer because to her the printer is something that's alive. She gets fired because she gets caught talking to the printer. And then in the end, she breaks into the office to be reunited with her printer. And this printer actually is like an older printer, so the company doesn't even want this printer around anymore. They want to like upgrade it and like trade it away. It doesn't work as well as it used to be anymore. The only one that actually wants this printer around is her. So she manages to be reunited with this printer with the help of a garbage man, and she brings the printer home. I think for me, what really surprised me was at the 60% mark, the book switches to the printer's POV. And we find out that, like, you know, it's not all in her head. Actually, this book validates her belief system. Printer really does love her back. It is a reciprocal relationship. I would like to read this, like, you know, in tandem with The Factory by Oyamada Hiroko. Yeah, I think these two books would like go quite well together if you were to read them side by side. Next book, Big Swiss by Jen Beagin. Okay, this book is so messy. Everyone here is a mess. If you read it, you'll feel better about your own life. But that's not the point, okay? There is this woman, she's middle-aged. She had a relationship with a guy for 9 years. She ended it instead of marrying him. After that, she takes a dog and then she moves like somewhere else, and then she takes up a job as a transcriptionist for a therapist. Specifically, it's a sex therapist. She becomes very interested in one particular person who she nicknames Big Swiss because of her height and her nationality. This client is much younger than her. But then one day, they meet at a dog park. She recognizes the voice and she uses the information that she has from the therapy sessions to befriend this person. They end up having an affair. Big Swiss is married, which then makes Greta feel complicated. It's inevitable that Big Swiss is going to realize that Greta has actually been privy to the therapy sessions that she's been having with the therapist. In the end, there is like a confrontation. They sort of break up, but at the same time, like nothing is really resolved. And I think it gives Greta a chance to also think about how did she become the kind of person that she is right now? What happened to her in her past? What is she refusing to deal with or acknowledge? At the end of the day also, I think she comes to a realization that she and Big Swiss, they are like not meant to be. They are two very different people. Not just the age difference, right? But like in terms of what they want out of life, in terms of their circumstances right now, it's kind of a rebound situation for her. Yeah, but at the end of the day, she just needs to get on with her life and go and feed her animals. Second last book, I guess, of this video, but the last book about like an unhinged woman that I want to talk about is Where I Am by Sophie White. This book is strange. Okay, it's set on an island, an Irish island, that is very backwards, very superstitious, that doesn't really have connection or doesn't really have any influence from the mainland. So they are very set in their ways. The main character, her name is Eileen. It's spelled the Irish way, so Aoileean. Eileen, she stays with her mother and her grandmother. Her mother, however, is, I don't even know how to describe it. She just stays in bed, and all her life, Eileen has had to take care of her mother, who she doesn't acknowledge as her mother. She calls her mother it, you know, the pronoun it. She calls her mother the bed thing. When you read the book from her POV, it's clear that her mind is not very emotionally stable. She's not quite on psychopath levels. There is something different and something wrong with her. Something sinister, something perhaps even a little bit evil. And I do think that it is largely not because of nature, but because of nurture. The way that she was brought up turned her into a person like that. So she doesn't love her grandma, she doesn't love her mom, she hates them. The islanders that she grew up with are also very, very insular. But on top of that, they seem to have turned her into a kind of boogeyman. So she's isolated, nobody will talk to her, nobody will touch her. The men do rape her, and that's just the kind of life that she has on the island. I mean, if you grew up in a small little island and everybody is avoiding you like you have the plague, and they spit at you to get rid of the bad luck when they see you or something like that, would you grow up to be a kind and loving person? I don't think so. It's definitely some kind of abuse going on here. Everyone on the island is kind of fucked up, but she is the most fucked up. The most. So when there is somebody that shows up on the island from the mainland, a visitor, and that person talks to her like a normal human being, she falls in love with her. She becomes obsessed. She starts stalking her. It's a reaction, isn't it, to like the years of the neglect and the abuse, that if somebody just shows up and shows you the most basic courtesy, asks you for your name, sits next to you, shares food with you, you're gonna fall at their feet, right? She's basically like a starving dog being thrown a bone. This woman has a newborn baby. She's having a really hard time taking care of her newborn by herself. And Eileen, in order to make sure that this woman will stay by her side, she tries to find a way to make herself useful. She also tries to find a way to make the baby sick so that the baby will have no choice, so that the mom will have no choice but to stay put and allow herself to be taken care of by Eileen. But at home, Eileen's mom has been slowly carving messages, very, very, very slowly, across the years. And the message that came out is crazy, but it does sound a little bit like a soul has been trapped inside her invalid body. I also thought that perhaps the reason why the mom became like that is because of postpartum depression. The visitor is also a woman struggling with her newborn. It's about how women are not supported sufficiently after giving birth, and it doesn't just damage them, but it damages, like, you know, the child as well. Okay, the last book. So this book is called Fox by Joyce Carol Oates. It was published in 2025, so it's a new release, but I don't see people talking about it. I hope they do, because it disturbed me. It disturbed me quite a bit. Okay, so if you've read My Dark Vanessa, Lolita, Tampa, then this book is like in the same category. There is a teacher. He is 40 plus years old. He preys on his students. He only likes girls that are 13 years old or younger. He doesn't like them any older. The moment they start to show signs of maturity or like puberty, he doesn't want them anymore. Mr. Fox showed up out of nowhere. He is friends with the niece of the principal. He actually got in based on connections. And this friend that he has, the niece, she believes that he's a good person. She believes that perhaps he even loves her because he managed to like gaslight her through university. But actually, he's been using her as a beard. She harbors this fantasy that he will wake up one day and be like, you have been by my side all this time and you are the woman that I love. He manages to charm her aunt in order to get a position in this school. So this school is really out of the way, and the only reason why he's here is because he needs to escape because he got caught in his previous school. So he needs to change his name, change his school, and escape. He likes this book that I really, really hate called The House of Sleeping Beauties by Kawabata. I don't understand why people continue to read that man's books when it's obvious that he's so gross. I'm giving them the side eye. He also feels morally superior to the protagonist of Lolita, like Humbert, because Humbert, he does have sex, right, with Lolita, but to him he's like, I'm better than Humbert because I don't have sex with the girls that I choose. That would be damaging for their sexual organs, and I am not like that. I'm better than him. So yeah, okay, I guess that he doesn't exactly force himself on them, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't touch them inappropriately. All these victims of his are all like little girls, and they don't know that he is a predator. They think that this is like a normal and special thing. They are in love with him because he's handsome and he's charming, but you know, you're 13 years old and the man is like 40 something. So this book starts out with like us knowing somehow he was found dead in a car in the middle of the woods. There's like an investigation. The rest of the book then is arranged not chronologically, but you as the reader, you're able to sort of piece together like what really happened. I think one thing that this book did really well was to show the reader how somebody like that could have gotten away with it. How every step of the way there were people who were suspicious but they didn't act on their suspicions. There were girls whose behaviors were changed but their parents were not paying attention to them. Definitely he was a villain, but at the same time it was the school around him, it was the society itself that gave him second chances, that allowed him to start anew. It was society itself that took him at face value. You know, somebody so charming and someone who loves his students so much couldn't possibly hurt them, other than just like, you know, luring little girls into his office so he can touch them inappropriately. He also managed to get away with like bullying students. The parents were just not aware. The parents were not suspicious of this other adult. They just automatically assumed that everything that he said is correct. So long as he flatters their child a little bit, whatever comes afterwards, they will just eat it up. It's society as a whole that fails to protect children, and I think that this is the message of this book, which is really fucked up. But I still think that everybody should read it. So that's the end of my book review portion. Like I said, I still have like 3 more categories of books that I do want to talk about. This is just 1 out of 4, maybe 1 out of 5, maybe 1 out of 3. We'll see. I do feel a little bit like I procrastinated a bit too much and now I have to do catch up. I am slowing down my reading in 2026, so I think that will give me a bit more time and energy. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching and I'll talk to you again soon.